Okay, great. Yeah, thanks so much for having me today. Really excited to talk about the opportunity, the future of travel. Obviously, something that American Airlines is incredibly passionate about, that I'm incredibly passionate. American Airlines for almost 2.5 years, and lead global brand marketing, as Anna said. Lead the majority of all of the communications, brand equity, advertising, media, sponsorships, activation, our own channels, AA.com, the content, email and CRM, insights, etc. So yeah, really love working on the gamut of marketing related activity at American Airlines.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Super excited to have you here today. So what we're going to do is have some questions, some topics prepared for you. I would love to get your perspective on the future of travel, why we're both here today. And then we will leave some time at the end for Q&A. So as Annie mentioned, everyone, please feel free to submit questions through the widget, and we will definitely get to as many as we can at the end of our chat.
Great.
So to get started, Dana, obviously it's been quite a year. Even a year ago, I don't think any of us expected quite the impact that COVID would have, and just how it would turn the world upside down, and especially the travel world as it touches on your business. But one of the things that actually impressed me the most is how companies, including American Airlines, including the entire travel and airline industry, were able to adapt and innovate in response to the changing environment, the changing regulations, changing consumer expectations, and quite frankly, how you had to do that, unfortunately, with very constrained resources. So could you talk a bit about that? How did American Airlines adapt from a business perspective, from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I mean, as we have said so many times throughout this entire experience, that it's really been an unprecedented situation, but really no better way to describe it than it truly has been unprecedented. And, in many respects, we had to do almost a 180 turn, of our policies. We had to do it quickly. A lot of our policies had to change in reaction to government policies, CDC, as well as things that we need to do as a company to make sure that our customers had peace of mind when they traveled, that they felt safe traveling. And so I think as we look to those changes and what we needed to do, the first thing was we had to focus on the customer, and where were they at the point? What were some of their barriers to travel? How could we make them feel more comfortable? So we instituted our clean commitment, and that was really focusing on all those things that were important. Mask regulations, highlighting HEPA filters, something we'd already had, but no customers knew anything about. Touchless travel, instituting a partnership with Purell, getting GBAC certification, which, if you don't know, it's the Global Biorisk Advisory Council that assists all of our policies and procedures. So many of those things that we really had to get ahead of as we thought about what was important to our customers during this time frame. And then from a business standpoint, we really had to focus on how can we drive revenue and how can we reduce costs, and understanding what the environment was. From an operations side, we had to reduce our schedule, and we focused a lot of flights more on cargo, something that we've always had that side of the business. It just hadn't really been the biggest priority, but especially, you thought about it in the March timeframe where things really significantly declined. That became a bigger focus for us as we, figured out how to drive revenue. And as a result of all of these changes, our communications had to change. We had a full marketing plan built out for 2020. We'd worked on it, since probably July or previously of 2019. And, all of that had to change. The advertising, the activation, even down to every single image that we had on our website, for AA.com. We needed to make sure that every picture was showing someone in a mask, something that we didn't have. So, I think it was just all about perseverance and, figuring out how to really make sure that our customers felt good about American Airlines.
Absolutely. No, and all the things you just touched on. I mean, the HEPA filters, I myself, beyond working with you guys, didn't really know much about it. And now when I went to the dentist a few weeks ago, the thing I was most excited to hear was that they have HEPA filters installed now in the office. And I actually knew what that was, thanks to you. But no, it's interesting what you said from a cargo perspective, from the business perspective, right? You can't move people anymore. So now you start moving things and you really lean into that, and you had to be agile and adapt. And from a marketing perspective, like you said, a lot of things obviously had to change. The masks, that huge debate with the Super Bowl a week ago, right, about ads that were filmed with and without masks. So to that point, do you want to talk about any of the initiatives that might have been planned for 2020, which then had to be reimagined or pivoted, and then just how you got back into market with that first brand campaign last spring?
Yeah, absolutely. As I mentioned, we had to change all of our plans, and we had
Mm-hmm.
a major brand campaign that was planned to launch in 2020. Is something we had worked on, significantly. We hadn't done major brand equity communications at American Airlines for a while, so it was something we were really excited about and had put a lot of focus and effort
Mm-hmm.
into. But we also knew that this just wasn't the right time to launch this type of communications. We really just had to
Right.
set that aside.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, I think we'd spent so much time in 2019 really focused and doing a deep dive into consumer insights and really understanding customers' relationship to travel. And as part of that, we identified some really timeless insights about travel,
Mm-hmm.
about flights, in general, what consumers thought. So we really had a rich foundation to build from.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was really easy for us to pivot. We had a timely expression. We had all of those timeless insights. And then that launch that we were going to do in 2020 was our timely expression, and
Yeah.
we felt great about it. But when the environment significantly changed, our timely expression rather,
Yeah.
had to change as well. And so did our communications. So that was something where, luckily, because of the insights, I think we could make that pivot. And so that really resulted in our first, video, our first advertising right at the beginning of COVID. We shut down, as many others did, for a couple of weeks in that, late Feb, March timeframe,
Yeah.
where we really kind of realized, wow, how significant of an impact COVID was going to have on our world. Um, and at that point, as we were rethinking, how do we get back into marketing? What do we want to focus on? There were a lot of questions at the time, of really whether airlines should be flying at all.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a responsible thing for us to be doing? Why were we doing that? And so that was really
Absolutely.
our first foray back into marketing and back into advertising, was answering the question, why do we fly? And we
Mm-hmm.
talked about how the fact that, in our 90 plus years, that we'd weathered good times, we'd weathered bad times,
Yeah.
but that we'd always persevered and continued to fly. And when we said, why do we fly? And we said,
Mm-hmm.
we fly because people need to get home. There were a lot of repatriation efforts at that point for internationally,
Absolutely.
for people who were working in different places. We talked about the fact that we fly because life-saving equipment needs to get to the people who need it most. And that is kind of reflective of some of our cargo efforts. And, we said, everyone is doing their part to keep the world moving. When you think about all of the, amazing frontline workers and all of the medical workers, and we said, they're doing such a major part, but we want to do what we can to help. What is our part? And our part was to keep the world moving, both people and cargo. And, most importantly, at the end of the day, we said, why do we fly? And we said, you are why we fly. And so that was really the impetus for a new tagline for American Airlines, you are why we fly. And we found that it really, resonated both externally with customers, but also with internally and with our team members. And it was kind of a rallying cry that people could really get behind, that, our team members take this responsibility of flying people so seriously and with so much care and so much emotion. And that really brought it to life. So, it was just kind of a situation where I think we took a bad situation and really tried to find the positive in it. And, it led us to a very authentic place. And I think
Yeah.
communication with our customers.
Absolutely. And I love that campaign, and I love the duality of it, like you just said, resonating internally and externally. And it's also speaking from the brand and from the consumers too, right? It's why does American fly? This is why, but it's also recognizing why do the consumers need to fly, right? And so that
Absolutely.
you is so dual. And I just love that aspect of it. And I love what you said about the insights, right? Timeless insights. Just reinforces how important those are, how important understanding your consumer is, and really understanding what matters. Because if you only have insights that are timely for the given moment, then if something changes, you're out of luck, right? But by really having that deeper understanding, you're better able to be agile and to pivot like that. And so I think insights are more important than ever, especially in a year like the past. So is there anything you were surprised to learn over the past year? Any new insights, anything you were surprised to learn or to discover, whether it was about the consumer or about the company internally as well?
Yeah, I don't know if I was surprised, but really, you know, really pleased of really showing how, um, there's a book, The Adversity Challenge, and it
Mhm.
really speaks to the fact that people can overcome so much and that
Yeah.
sometimes the best work, the best ideas can come out of adversity. And I really think this
Absolutely.
past year was definitely a testament to that, um,
Mhm.
because we were kind of forced to think differently, very agilely, and with a lot of flexibility and a lot of change.
Yeah.
And I think it gave us the opportunity for so much more innovation and to really think differently. I mean, even just from an internal perspective,
Mhm.
um, it really, enabled us to collaborate a lot more closely. Not that we hadn't collaborated, but I don't think we had been forced to do it in such a efficient manner, especially when budgets were really, really tight, and
Mhm.
we all were focused on one key goal. And so that collaboration, it really enabled us to try some new things, and really think differently. I mean, example, we did a lot more promotions this year. We just did
Okay.
one in January, American
Yeah.
Daily Deals. And for 2 weeks, we did a different promotion every day. We haven't done that type of work in years. It was really something new and different, and we learned a lot from
Mhm.
it. Things that will carry on. Certain things we said, yep, tried that, not going to do that again. And others that we said, this is a new best practice for us going forward. And we just different ways of working. I know we said
Yeah.
earlier that our clean commitment, that was something that was a big focus. If you had told me, a year prior how much time I was going to spend on talking about cleaning and HEPA filters, I would have said no way. Um,
Yeah.
and one of the funny things is that we have a number of sports sponsorships,
Yeah.
and we've done some great work and activations and promotions for people to fly the really ardent fans to games and a lot of different fun things.
Mhm.
And we actually pivoted and we leveraged those relationships, and we did some online and social media, et cetera, with the Dallas Cowboys and with the LA Rams. And it was all about reassurance and
Yeah.
how people felt more comfortable traveling. We communicated clean commitment. We communicated how, we fly them to games and what it means and how they feel great flying American Airlines. And it just shows a different way, that something we never would have done a year before. And yet we could pivot and leverage those relationships in a totally different way, but in something that was timely and relevant for where we are today.
No, absolutely. I mean, if you had asked me 2 years ago if I thought we'd ever be featuring the Rams or talking about the Rams somehow about cleaning or flying in general, I would have said, no way. What are you even talking about? That's not how we do the marketing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's great. And I love what you said about the collaboration as well. So can you maybe build on that a bit more and expand in terms of cross-functional collaboration? Obviously so important. Everyone knows that. We strive for that in general every day. But how did you really kind of infuse that more this year and respond so quickly and work more together? Because obviously teams often have silos, and there's also working internally as well as, like you said, with all your partners across the board. So how did that come about? Was it just everyone coming together for that greater goal? Or were there any processes or adjustments you had to make to be able to work together like that?
Yeah, I think it's a little mix of both. It was partnerships with our external partners, people like
Mm-hmm.
MediaCom,
Yep.
as well as a lot more partnership with the different groups. I mean, for example, marketing and our revenue management teams. We've
Mm-hmm.
always worked together, of course,
Right.
but we were really lockstep together in a way that we haven't been before, um, because you just couldn't operate in these silos and be as effective and efficient as we need to be in a time frame where we really needed to reduce our cash burn and try and
Yep.
drive revenue in new and different ways, um, than we had in the past. And so, yeah, we had different groups. We had really different groups at all levels that we have
Mm-hmm.
instituted, where we were not only sharing up-to-date information, we were brainstorming, we were ideating, we were sharing data in a different way
Yes.
of how we drive results. And that really led to some best practices and some things that we are continuing, into 2021. And I know we will continue past the pandemic. And so I think that's part of the, reinvention and innovation that comes out of this type of experience. No one would ever wish to have a pandemic. No one would ever wish for, our revenue to drop so significantly, our bookings to drop, for people not to be able to travel or feel comfortable traveling. That being said, it really led us some different thinking that I think will make us stronger. I think it will enable us to deliver better for our customers in the future, and make travel a better experience, because we've really had to collaborate on a totally different level than we have before.
No, absolutely. And that rings so true, especially what you said about the data sharing and just the coming together and really breaking down those barriers. So have absolutely seen that on our end as well. And it's exciting. Like you said, you wouldn't wish for it, but it's exciting that now you have a new way of going forward, that once we get through to the other side of this, we'll stick around. And to that point, sticking around, so a lot of changes were made across the board: business operations, the in-flight experience, flexibility and no change fees. You talked about the clean commitment. A lot of these were obviously driven by the immediate needs of the pandemic, right? So the immediate needs, the immediate demands on the consumer side. Are there changes that you think are going to persist, ones that will become a permanent new way of doing things for the industry or for the brand?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of them we just talked about was our clean commitment, and that's not something that we are going to, reverse or go back on. I think that's just table stakes going forward. Mask regulations, they may or may not change over time. We will see. But, all of those different areas, all of the different things that we instituted as part of our GBAC certification, those will continue on. Those are going to be expectations from customers, that they will have going forward. The level of cleaning that we're doing, all of those things, it just becomes table stakes. If you think about flexibility, we, along with many other airlines, instituted no change fees. And that's something that's going to continue. Once customers have gotten used to that type of travel, and that way of booking travel, and that is an expectation that they will have going forward. And so that's something that we're going to continue, that I think just makes the travel journey and the travel experience better for our customers. And so that's always something we strive to do, is to make continuous improvements for our customers. And so, they feel better about American Airlines, that they want to fly more with us, et cetera. And, just how, if you think back to 9/11 and how the TSA protocols and the check-ins, that wasn't something we really did before, but now that's just how you travel. And so I think some of those things will continue on. As I think forward to, what's the future of travel, so some of the things that we have been doing prior to COVID that we're doing during COVID in a bigger way, I think we will continue to ramp up. One of those is the idea of contactless travel. We have really built that over time, and that was something we were working on regardless of COVID, but we have definitely ramped up, and I think we will continue with more innovation in the future. So, just how you can use the app. You can check in, for your flight at home. You can download an electronic boarding pass. You can go online to aa.com and see what are the latest travel requirements. If you need COVID testing, you can go online and order a testing kit. You can download Verify, which is a mobile health passport, that you can put in all of your travel requirements. Those are things that are needed today. But as you think going forward, we have touchless kiosks where you can get your bag, tag without touching the kiosk. And going forward, like, we're already doing tests with biometrics, where, you can use mobile ID technology to drop off your bag. And later this year, you'll be able to do mobile ID technology to use at TSA checkpoints. If you want to enter one of our lounges in the Admirals Club without taking your ID out of the wallet. So those are things that are just going to continue as we move forward. That idea of touchless, which, it solves two purposes. I mean, most importantly, I would say it makes it more convenient for our travelers and our customers, but also in today's day and age with COVID, where people don't want those extra touches, it becomes even more important. those are things I think will absolutely continue to build.
Absolutely. That makes so much sense. And you already touched on the other thought I was going to ask you about is the consumer expectations, right? And how those go hand in hand with what you're doing on the business perspective. And what you said is true. Once you offer something, it's hard to take it back, right? You can't rewind and say, we're not going to be as clean anymore. Or we're not going to be as flexible anymore. So it goes both ways, though, in terms of the consumer expectations and what they now expect and demand of the brand. But I think your point about 9/11 and security, in the other direction, it's what do we expect of consumers now, right? And there might be adjustments that they need to make that going through security. Now we take it for granted. Now it's kind of assumed. You build that into your time at the airport. You build that into how you approach packing your bags. But you know that that's going to be something that's not going to change. And it goes both ways in terms of what we expect from consumers and have them change their behavior, and then what they require from us going forward. So is there anything we're going to expect from consumers and make them do differently?
Oh gosh, I think it's just continuing to understand and reinforce what are the latest regulations from the government and the CDC,
Yeah.
And realizing that those regulations, it is all about your travel experience and making sure that you as a customer are safe and you as a traveler, but also your fellow travelers. I think it's really important that this is a group experience. You need to make sure you're being respectful for not only what your experience is, but others. And so, that's why I'm sure policies will continue to change and we will follow whatever those are and really reinforcing those with customers. We've unfortunately had people who really strongly resist wearing a mask, and that's something that, before it was something that we felt as important as an airline. It's something for all customers to do to better protect the health of our other customers, our team members. And so, those are things that we really hope that people will understand that we're doing this with everyone's best interest in heart. And because we want to be able out there traveling, we want to take you to those great destinations you want to go to, but we have to take everyone's health and safety, most importantly, into consideration. And therefore, those are the things that we will reinforce, and then we want to make sure that's a pact with our customers because we're in this together. And I think we all want to be traveling more than we are today, but that's going to take some work on both of our parts.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think consumers are going to understand that. I think what you said about group travel, I think before the pandemic, no one thought of it that way, right? No one thought of it as a group experience. It was all about where do I want to go? How do I want to get there? But now people are probably a lot more cognizant of that. So talking about some of the changes you've made, would love to understand more about the challenges. So what are some of the biggest challenges still facing American? There's obviously the obvious ones that some of you touched on already, but are there other challenges that may be facing the industry that people don't think of or just are not as aware of? And then looking out, what are some of the challenges that you expect to come up in the next year, 6 months from now, a year from now?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest challenges that's probably not talked as much outside of the industry is just planning, and how do you plan ahead? I mean, normally, we're planning a year out for all the different things that we're going to do. And obviously this past year has taught us how quickly we need to pivot and how fluid we can be. But, the COVID situation continues to be fluid. It continues to change. And so we have to continue to adapt. And of course, we forecast our schedule, we forecast what we think our business performance will be, and our marketing plans based on where we think we will be. We've got to be prepared. We want to make sure that we are doing everything to capture the existing demand that's out there, as well as helping to inspire travel and build demand. But, the situation continues to shift. And therefore, those plans, we have them, but we also have to know that we need to be able to quickly change them as the situation changes. I mean, for example, when the CDC enacted COVID testing for international travel, we had to adjust our plans, and how much focus we put against Mexico and the Caribbean. Those were things that we had to pivot, in a matter of days and weeks really quickly. Luckily, I think that's one of the muscles that we've really had to flex and become better at is adjusting plans. So I think we've become so much better at that, but I foresee that's going to continue to happen all throughout 2021, as far as how we need to think about planning and how we need to think about our performance and our plans. I think it's going to be a different way of doing business, as well as thinking about what is the booking period. We've had traditional periods that are much further out. During COVID, they've been much, much shorter, not surprisingly. What does that look like going forward? We're continuing to see, and it continues to flex. So, we just have to adjust and be nimble and agile based on the situation.
Absolutely. I mean, planning is so key, and there are so many things in flux even now, right? The vaccine rollout being uneven, the new strains that are circulating, the government regulations. And like you said, you can't really plan what you don't know, and especially what you don't control. So that's definitely a good skill that you can flex now, that agility in planning.
So on the ball, but we want to be as ready as we possibly can.
Absolutely, right. You can't, exactly. You don't know, but you plan every case you can. So on the flip side of that, not the challenges, but thinking more hopefully and more optimistically, what are you most hopeful for? What do you see might be some of the biggest opportunities coming out of all this as the world recovers from COVID-19 and beyond?
Yeah, I think one of the positives that this year has really reinforced and reminded people is how important travel is, in their lives, and how much they really love it. What they love about it, what they've missed most, where they want to go next. I think we definitely know from consumers and from consumer insights, but I think we've all heard it from our family and our friends, how much they just can't wait to travel. It's one of the things that they're most looking forward to, especially if they haven't felt as comfortable traveling, whether they have health concerns or whatever the case is. And where they want to travel, particularly internationally, as countries open up. Domestically, luckily, we've been able to continue with our travel, which has been great. But internationally, a lot has just been closed down for us. So I think people are excited about it, and I think it's the whole journey. It's not just the destination. Part of the fun is the planning, the thinking ahead,
100%,
preparing for it. I think maybe some people who maybe thought the flight wasn't the best part of the experience are now like, I just want to get on a plane again, the actual journey while you're there, and then all the memories, upon return. And I think just realizing that, it's about connecting, with other people. I think that, this has been a consumer trend that has been building for a while now. And the fact that, a lot of people have realized that experiences are more important than things. And I think that's probably something that's been reinforced over the past year, that people value those experiences. And I think that trend is just really going to continue as COVID wanes, with travel being one of those top experiences that people really value. And I think seeing that, travel is not only about your personal, vacation or leisure experience. And of course, that's great, but that, on a bigger level, travel helps connect the world. And, travel is going to help the economy return as well as we go and travel to these different places. It really has a positive ripple effect. So, I'm just looking forward to travel increasing for those who haven't been able to travel, to getting back out there. For those maybe who have been traveling, but want to go to farther away destinations or see more of those family and friends that they haven't been able to. I'm just really looking forward to hopefully everyone being able to have those great experiences again.
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I can't wait to get on a plane again. I haven't been, it's almost a year now. It was actually end of February, it was my last flight, early March. So coming up on that year. But I think what you said about the whole journey is so true, because it's not just the getting there. It's not just the destination. I mean, a lot of studies have shown that the happiest moments are actually the planning stages, because people are anticipating and looking forward to the upcoming trip. And so I can only imagine just how impactful it's going to be now, every step of that journey, that first journey that people take. But some people have already been taking these journeys, right? So obviously air travel, especially ground to a halt last spring. But since then, it's started to pick up a bit. What are you seeing from that booking perspective? Who is flying these days? How has it changed?
Yeah, I mean, I think from a demographic standpoint, we've seen that a younger demographic, particularly 30 and below, that they are flying a lot more this past year during the pandemic. They've taken advantage of the lower fares. They maybe haven't been as concerned about COVID compared to older demographics. And
Yeah.
so that's been a great opportunity for us. It's allowed us to introduce American Airlines and our flight experience, what our travel journey is all about, to a new customer base. And so, that's something that we hope that they've had a great experience with American and that they will be future, loyal travelers going forward for us. So yeah, and booking, as I said earlier, the booking period, the timeframes have changed, and we've seen how bookings have really been influenced by the number of COVID cases. As COVID cases go up, bookings go down, and vice versa. But I think now that we're starting to see that COVID cases are decreasing right now, number of vaccines are increasing. I think there's even more reason to hope, and as we get to warmer weather, that helps. So I think there's a lot of reasons for positivity, and looking forward to more bookings as the year continues and as we move forward. But we're really optimistic, and that we're going to have a bigger return, hopefully, in the spring and into the summer and beyond.
Hopefully. I know we all hope for that, for sure. You mentioned loyalty. So you mentioned trying to make these new travelers more loyal. And it's so fascinating how just that shift has happened, not just in demographics, but also the types of flyers you have. So what do you see as the future of loyalty in the travel space? So overall, the pandemic has really driven a lot of declines in brand loyalty just across categories, not just travel. It's driven more consumers to try new shopping behaviors, new methods, new brands. How is that playing out in travel and for airlines?
Yeah, I mean, I think loyalty will definitely continue to be an intrinsic part of travel, and part of the travel category going forward. It's become such an important part of the travel journey, really an intrinsic part for many of our customers and many of our travelers. And I think most importantly, it's a chance for us to, welcome back a lot of our Advantage members who haven't been traveling as much. Welcome them back as they start to travel in a bigger way this year, as well as driving this loyalty with a new customer base. And I think, at the end of the day, this loyalty and our Advantage program, it enables people to do more of what they love. When they fly us more, they see the benefits and, the opportunities that come from that. And it really enables you to fly more. The more you fly, the more miles you gain, the more you can use them for other travel experiences, for different flights and trips, et cetera. So I think it's kind of a virtuous loop and a virtuous cycle that the more travel you do, the more benefits you gain, and the more travel you can go forward. And for those of us, and for many of our customers who really love and value travel, that just becomes a critical part of the picture. So I know a lot of our Advantage members haven't been flying as much this year. We're excited to welcome back. We're so glad to have these new travelers. And I think we're just going to continue to build on loyalty going forward.
Absolutely. And I'm sure people are so excited to make up for all that lost travel, hopefully with a lot more of it. So on that note, do you think the way people, or more importantly, the reasons why people are going to be traveling are going to look different in the future? Is there going to be maybe a shift in priorities and top travel destinations, types of travel, why people are traveling once they do restart?
Yeah, we'll have to see over time. I mean, I definitely think right now, the idea of visiting family and friends is such a critical part of travel. I think that's what people have missed the most. We did an ad earlier this year during the summer, and it was called "The Best Places Are People." And it really built upon this idea that when you looked at insights, what did people miss the most? And why did they most want to travel? And it really was to reconnect with family and friends. So it wasn't necessarily about the destination or having that great vacation, but it's not about going to Hawaii. It was about going to see grandma. It's about going to see your best friend.
Absolutely.
That type of thing. And or if it's even with your immediate family, maybe you've been stuck at home and it's about having that experience together, getting to a national park, having a change environment, but reconnecting as a family in a new and different way. So I think that will continue to be important. Obviously, corporate travel, we
My next
see
question.
that coming back. I mean, obviously that's really taken a hit, over the past year. But I think that's something that, it will gradually and steadily increase, as travel comes back in a bigger way.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to ask you to build on that last point about business and just corporate travel, how you see that evolving and really how is American engaging with that traveler? And then I see Annie just joined us. So I think we're going to be only a few minutes left. We'll do a few quick audience Q&As and if we have time for that. So on the corporate travel side, Dana, how is that changing?
I mean, the large corporations, I think for anyone who looks at those, it has really been halted. I think people are trying to make sure, just like we make sure our team members are safe, they want their team members to be as safe as possible and really not to take any risks. So I think especially as the vaccine continues to roll out, as we see COVID cases increasing, we will start to see corporate travel gradually increase, first in domestic markets, and then I think over time with international. But someone recently I heard make this comment, and I thought it was a really valuable one. They said virtual meetings, all the Zoom meetings that we've all been on and experiencing, it really makes the world a little bit smaller. I mean, I know until the pandemic, I have roommates from college that are literally all over the country, and we'd get together maybe, once a year if we were lucky. And now suddenly we've never done Zoom calls, and now we're doing that regularly. I feel so much closer to them. So I think there is this idea that virtual meetings make the world smaller, and anything that makes the world smaller actually increases travel demand. It shows you that,
I love that.
I want to reinforce that connection that we've made. And so I think it'll take some time. I don't think corporate travel is going to bounce back immediately, but I do think it will grow over time. And that, at the end of the day, travel, it makes the world a smaller place. It enables connections. And, I think that's something that we will continue to do, and it will continue to grow.
Absolutely. No, I love that. And it's so true. You'd think travel expands it, but it also makes it smaller and brings us all closer. So Annie, if we have a few minutes, we'll jump to a few Q&As from the audience.
One more Q&A.
One more. Okay, perfect. So a question that came in from Henry is, what challenges did American have restarting all of those technical pieces after being somewhat dormant during COVID? What infrastructural challenges do you still see bringing some things back out of the freezer?
Yeah. I am not the best person to speak to all of the operational challenges, but definitely from an aircraft standpoint, planes are built to fly. They're not built to sit dormant. And so that is something that our operations team focused really strongly on, and making sure that our planes were kept up to date, that they were serviced, all of the technical requirements that involves. So that's a big focus, and something that we're seeing as more flights, as our schedule builds up, that's something our team is incredibly important to them. And I would say from a marketing side, from a media standpoint, we were dormant for a while.